Saoirsele Fitzpatrick, Stop AIDS Missing Medicine campaign. Which are these missing medicines and why?
So there are missing medicines because one, sometimes they're too expensive for people to afford, and two, because sometimes they simply don't exist. So high medicine prices affect people living with HIV who are trying to get access to new antiretrovirals. For people living with hepatitis C, we have a new drug, Saoirsele, which is a cure for hepatitis C, but is unaffordable for most people who need it. And then there's missing medicines that don't exist for people living with TB, for instance, with multi-drug resistant TB, who have to face really horrible regimens with horrible side effects. Also HIV pediatrics, that's an area where there's not a lot of research going on. And the reason why we have these missing medicines in both accounts is because our system for developing medicines is not driven by public health need. It doesn't produce affordable drugs. It's driven by profit. So they want high prices and they'll do research that is profitable to them. So that's why we have really high costs for these new drugs for Hep C and for HIV, and why for diseases like TB and HIV in children that predominantly affect people living in developing countries, we don't have adequate treatment.
This is a social problem and of course also a political problem. What could politics do more to help people, and what is not doing?
So it's definitely a political problem. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the richest industries of the world. So, governments are definitely more inclined to favor policies that the industry wants because they're lucrative, they're making money for the country. But what we think is a good approach for governments to take is to use the fact that they are the duty bearers of human rights. Access to affordable medicine is a human right, and it's something that is permanent and is completely universal. And it is our government's responsibility to make sure that the people in their countries can realize that human right. We also want to make the economic case to governments that the current system is not in their favor economically, like they're spending way too much money on prescription medicines because of the hiked up prices that pharmaceutical companies apply to new treatments. And then if we had a system where we didn't have intellectual property, but instead we had different incentives such as push or pull funding, which came from public money. So there would be no patent monopolies, you would have generic production, maximum competition, lowest price possible. You wouldn't have to spend money on marketing and lobbying, which is what takes up most of the cost anyway. So you'd have a really efficient system where all the money being invested goes to research and development. You have generic competition, which means you have the cheapest drugs, would save governments money. So that's part of our strategy with the Missing Medicines campaign, is making that argument to the UK government in particular.
What makes the prices so high? Is it research or marketing?
So research has shown that the investment that goes into producing a drug, on average 30% goes into research and development and 70% goes into marketing and lobbying. And this is completely inflated because most research that pharmaceutical companies do actually predominantly comes from universities, so state-funded institutions. So research and development investment, 40% of that is actually coming from public money. So the cost just comes from the fact that a pharmaceutical company can apply a patent. They have monopoly, they can charge exactly what they want, and that's what they do.
About the UK, what do you think about PrEP, which has been until now denied by NHS?
So PrEP has proved really effective. It seems that one of the key reasons that the NHS won't give people access to it is because of the price that Gilead are charging, which is completely inflated again. And we actually have a generic version of it that's produced in India, but because of the intellectual property laws that we have in this country, can't get access to it. And it's totally unethical what's happening now, the fact that, the NHS said that they need to do another clinical trial to prove its effectiveness when it's already proved effective. You shouldn't have to put people through that same process again if something has already proved its efficacy. So yeah, we are supporting the work of ACT UP, who are working on this issue in particular.